Hi, so today I want to talk about prototypes and what they are in Objective-C. So if you've used languages like C# or Java for that matter, there's this concept of interfaces. And so one of the conceits they had when they came up with those languages was that they liked the idea of inheritance, but they didn't want to be able to do multiple inheritance like you can in C++. Well, turns out multiple inheritance isn't really that practical. In fact, inheritance nowadays is not considered to be all that great. But this idea of interfaces where you create a contract for your object has become pretty popular, and you can have multiple contracts per object. And so what's nice about that is, let's say if you're designing, let's say a vehicle class, it's going to be your base class. And so you want to create like a car off of that. And you want to have a move forward, move backwards, stuff like that. Then let's say you want to create an aircraft class as an example. Well, an aircraft can climb, but a car wouldn't climb. So what's nice about interfaces and prototypes in the case of Objective-C is that you can actually kind of define what your behaviors you want to have essentially as method signatures. And then when you are implementing that prototype inside of your Objective-C class, then you just go ahead and you do the implementation yourselves. And it's much nicer, I think, than using or trying to use inheritance for that. So let's take a quick example. So here I have a class I've created called aircraft, but I want to have a vehicle protocol that I can use that will conform to this class. So let's come over here. It's a new file, but instead of creating a Cocoa class, I'm going to come over here to Objective-C, click Next, and you can see here that there's different, I can create a category, I can create a protocol extension. I'm just going to create a new protocol. I'm going to call this Vehicle. And it says where I want to save it. Now we've saved it. So here you can see that we have this new protocol. And I'm going to go in here and enter two different method signatures, one for setting speed and one for getting the current speed. If I come back here to the aircraft, one of the things I can do is I can come over here to where I'm inheriting from the NS object. And after this, I can put in vehicle. And I just need to import that. Now we've imported the vehicle protocol. And I'm going to come into the implementation, and I'm going to paste those two method signatures in here. But I'm just going to do an implementation, a very quick implementation. So I'm going to take this speed, which is an integer, and I'm going to take the ivar for speed and set that equal. And I'm going to do the same thing with current speed. This time I'm going to return Now if I come back here to this main method, one of the things I can do is I can come over here and I can instantiate a new copy of that object. So I already have an import here for aircraft, so I can come over here, I can say aircraft, and we'll call this plane. And I'm going to say aircraft, alloc, init, and now I've created a new instance of that aircraft object. But in this case, instead of doing this, I just want to make sure that it conforms to the vehicle. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to use the ID keyword. And I have a previous video where I've talked about ID. And instead of being aircraft, I just want to make sure that it conforms to vehicle. And I'll get rid of that. And I got rid of the pointer, but you can still see here that this still works, that now that I have this plane, now I can come over here and I can say, I want to set speed, and I'll make that equal to 200 miles an hour. And maybe I want to retrieve the speed of that. Let's see what that would look like. So I'm going to use nslog. And I'm going to say traveling at, and we'll put in % and d. And here, all I have to do is say plane current speed. Now, if I run that, I can see I'm traveling at 200 miles an hour.